in Gujarat. This is my first time here, and your hospitality has been exceptional. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, from all the way from Jammu and Kashmir. So today I'm going to be talking with you about youth participation in politics. And hopefully, by the time this presentation is done, I've convinced at least a few of you to go file your nomination papers. We do have a slight technical glitch. I don't have my presentation or the prompter with me. So I'm going to request you all to clap once every time we need to change the slide. So you're going to have to do that for me so that I'm not telling someone next, 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 right? So let's keep it a little interactive. Before I ask you to clap though, if I ask you to turn your attention to my presentation, it says young and ready. It doesn't say young yet ready. Oftentimes when we talk about youth participation in politics, age is seen as a detrimental factor. Especially now that I have the privilege to speak after the most honorable Member of Parliament, Rupala sir, I don't think in the order of precedence I would ever come after him, because someone of his stature and his experience cannot be followed by a first-time member of the Legislative Assembly. But I'm going to do my best to try and hold your attention in some way, the same way that he did, so that we can get through this in the most fun way possible. But why should you really care about what I have to say? Okay, so let's do one loud clap for the person in the back. I just need one. So just once so that he knows we need to change it. Okay, so my name is Devyani Rana. I've already been introduced. I'm a member of the Legislative Assembly from the Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly, and I was recently elected from the Nagrota constituency. I am also currently the youngest legislator in the Assembly at 31 years old. And to be very honest, I feel pretty old, but in politics, I am the youngest person there. So among 90 legislators, you are currently listening to the youngest in the Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly. And while that comes with its own form of energy and its own form of kind of how you connect with people is slightly different, but it also comes with the requirement to prove yourself again and again and try to explain to people why what you do matters in a different way and shape and form. So before I go into further detail, let's give one more clap to the person in the back. Okay. So before I stepped into politics, setting foot into politics, I'll take you a little bit back. When you heard my introduction, you heard my father's name attached to my name. So they said Devyani Singh Rana. My father was a 4-time legislator who won the Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly in 2024 with the highest margin, and unfortunately passed away 2 weeks after that. It was sudden, and he was the kind of man who spent more than 2 decades in public service. And I've often said this, people often during their lives serve the public, but I feel he is the rarest of rare kind of individuals who on his last days was very concerned about the people of the Nagrota constituency and said and verbalized that he did not want them to feel that he is leaving them midway and that I must continue the work that he did. So that is why I jumped into politics, but way before that, I've been doing a lot of work that tangentially helps me. So let me reintroduce myself. I graduated from the University of California, Los Angeles, and then was a scholar at London School of Economics. At both these locations, I was involved in community organizing, community politics. I have worked with nonprofits like Breakthrough USA. I have had my own publications in BuzzFeed, Huffington Post, revolving around especially mental health. There's a program that we did which was called End the Stigma, and that whole campaign went viral at the time. And we've done a lot of grassroots work in community building, especially in Black and indigenous populations in Los Angeles. I've also worked in Crenshaw. If you're familiar with the LA topography, I was there for 5 years. So a lot of community grassroots works. And I moved back to India in 2018 to work on our media network. And it was a very interesting time. If you are familiar with Jammu and Kashmir politics, 2018 is when Article 370 was abrogated. And imagine running a media organization, but on 2G internet. So I had come right A few months prior, we were one of the only organizations in Jammu, media organizations, that said that Article 370 was going to be abrogated. And when it did happen, we had to restructure how we worked. And often, you will hear whenever you talk about Jammu Kashmir, the first thing that comes to your mind is the terrorism. And then, perhaps a distant second, our tourism. But the narrative of Jammu and Kashmir was not being actively shaped by local media, and that is where I stepped in around 6 years ago, and we tried to change the narrative of how Jammu and Kashmir is viewed. So in 2G internet, one of the first stories that went viral from our platform, mind you, on 2G internet, we managed to do millions and millions of views, and it was the impact of the COVID on trans communities in Kashmir. And so likewise, we have tried to find narratives within the Jammu and Kashmir context and talent within the Jammu and Kashmir context and try to get it to a platform which is national and international. So that's my kind of expertise, and that is the kind of lens I come into a politics and bring here. So in my work as a local media organizer and a media network owner, let's give the person in the back a loud clap. I have often seen that youth leverage media very well. If they want to protest, they're the first ones to leverage both social media and local media and get their voice to the table. But they are almost never at the table themselves. There is a disconnect between how youth shapes opinion and then how youth shapes policy. It is often seen that people do not participate in politics at a younger age because there is a stigma involved around how politics is perceived. So often when you're younger, you have these ideal views of the world. You look at politics as a dirty word. You look at politics as a dirty profession. And because you have that idealism and you operate in that black and white, you still do not comprehend that politics could be a place for you. And I would hope that you all kind of change the way you perceive politics, because politics is via media the politician, and a politician is only as good as a person as you are. So how you keep a politician accountable, how you want to do politics, is how youth participation in politics will continue to shape the country. But before we look at that bigger unit, I want you to come down and think about the sarpanch level and the panch level. How many of you have ancestral homes in villages? Can I get a show of hand? I would say roughly a fourth of the audience has links to villages. So if we look here, why youth participation is very important. Youth get access to resources when they join politics. So you just don't get to say in media, I want water. You get to actively put that tap in the area that you want. That is the difference. That is why youth needs to be participating in politics. That is why they need to be bringing in new ideas. And the only way to do it is to take part in elections. There is no two ways about it. Nobody is going to give you the power unless you go and fight for that election for yourself. Come on, let's give them a big clap again. Okay, so here are all the ages that you must know. Of course, if any of you are very ambitious and 35, I would hope to see you as the Honorable President of India someday soon. But if you are just 21 and starting out, the panchayat elections, so the panches and the sarpanches, and the municipal elections, the corporators or the councillors are where you can begin. So you remember how I said at 31 I feel old? It is because I'm already 10 years too late participating in politics. If you have just turned, you of course know at 18, you are eligible to vote. But at 21, you are eligible to fight your local elections. And that is something that a lot of people do not talk about. Of course, when you're 18, the whole world rushes after you to get your voter card ready, to get you informed about who you need to vote for. 10 candidates will show up at your house and drink tea with you for that whole month. And then after that, nobody guides you on what you can do next. But once you turn 21, you can actively take part in politics. You can actively be a politician, representing a smaller radius, of course, but having an impact nonetheless. Let's give them a loud clap. So the thing is, Sir knows Gujarati and I don't know Gujarati. My language is Dogri. and I can switch to Hindi if you want me to be slightly more energetic than this. But when I speak in Dogri, I tell people कि ये जरा ठंडा ठंडा काम करा दो ये नहीं चलना. Which means this cold response does not work with me. So what I need you to do is pump in some energy. I know I'm doing a little bit of a research-oriented work with you because I want people in the back especially to understand that you can be a part of politics. It is not out of your reach, especially because these local level elections are not basis a party. You can start without a party and then join a party when you go on. So that's not going to work for me. So let's give a loud clap to the person in the back. I think I need to get a translator for Dogri now very soon. Okay, so there are a lot of rules that are involved when you're looking into getting into politics. But one of the best things that I think that is happening now is having to get people to get involved in their model youth Gram Sabhas. So a lot of you know there are Gram Sabhas, model youth Gram Sabhas. You can volunteer with your local NGOs of Panchayat and create 3-page local briefs. So how many of you know who your Tehsildar is, who your Patwari is? Does anybody know what a Tehsildar is? Do you not have Tehsildars? Sorry? Okay, so that's your local. Oh. So we have Patwaris. I think that's what you're referring to. Huh? The ones who do your revenue work. Yes? There's a lot of, I love this. I love how different we are, diverse as a nation. So we have different, you have a DC. So I think that's where we'll be. You know what a DC is? District Collector? यहाँ पर सिर्फ मुझे ही पता है या यहाँ पर भी पता है? So how are we going to do this? What is a DC? Are we shy today? I think we're shy today. जब बचपन में क्या होता था लोग कहते थे सुबह ब्रेकफास्ट नहीं खाया मुझे लगता है यहाँ से तो किसी ने भी नहीं खाया. Right? So the district collector, we know what a DC is. How many of you have spoken to your DC before? So this is where it's important to understand when you want to be in politics or you want to have youth representation, talking to the media is not enough. You have to talk to every member of the administration. You have to figure out what your problem is, write a brief summary about it, and present it to the bureaucracy that exists in your area. Oftentimes, we bypass all of this and go to the media straight away, but that is where it is important to kind of enable youth to structure what they want to be done and then be able to verbalize it in a bureaucratic fashion. Let's get the next slide up. Can we get a clap? Thank you. Okay, so there are more than 6.5 lakh villages in India. And almost 60% of our population resides in villages. And now with the advent of internet, with the advent of social media, that border of rural and urban India exists more geographically than it does socially. So there could be a girl from rural India who could go on to win. For example, I'll give you my constituency as an example. There is a girl, her name is Nazia Bibi. She went on to win the Kho-Kho World Cup for India. But if I showed you where she lives, you would never be able to comprehend it. Because now the barriers to entry have reduced. So as more and more people start excelling in their fields, more and more individuals are going ahead and kind of bringing out what is the difference between rural and urban area, as that divide does not exist anymore. But a lot of people still live there. So while people might be excelling, what are the resources that are being provided there? That is where the Panchayati Raj comes into place. I know it's not fancy. I know that it may not be something that you think of as the center of power, but believe you me, I think that in a Panchayati Raj system, when done well, more power exists in the Panchayat than anywhere else in the country. Because when you start at that level and you make reformative changes there, that is when a bigger nation like India transforms. Can you get the next slide, please? Thank you. I appreciate it. So now let's do another question because I feel like I like to interact with my audience, as you've already seen. How many of you have done Model UN? Do we know what Model UN is? Okay, so how many? I see a few faces in the back. So let me allow me to explain to you. Model UN is basically when you're in school or college, the United Nations format is followed by students who represent as delegates and are put into simulations that kind of look at how UN works and that UN model, how that can be replicated, and kind of encourages them to take part in that. Now, under the NEP 2020, there is the Model Youth Gram Sabha, which is going to be implemented in schools across India to help children understand how they can actively participate in Gram Sabhas and actively participate in the PRI system. Can we get the next slide, please? Okay, so how many of you know what is one thing? Let's go deep in our mind. क्या एक चीज है जो आपके घर के पास आप बदलना चाहेंगे? What is one thing that you would like to change around your house? Is there a pothole? I hear pothole. Are there potholes around where you live? Is that a common problem? कोई potholes, सड़कों में गड्ढे, किसी का पानी नहीं आ रहा होगा समय पे, किसी का गली नहीं बनी है ठीक से, नाली नहीं ठीक से बनी है. ये, I think whether you're in Gujarat or you're in Jammu, I think the problems are the same, right? But how many of you know that to be able to fix all of that, the first step is the Panchayati Raj? So a lot of the implementation of basic problems starts at the Panchayati Raj level. If you look at the big schemes of the government, whether you're looking at the PMAY Awas Yojana Gramin, or you're looking at the Prime Minister's VVG Ramji, the new scheme that's come in, or you're looking at the Viksit Bharat Rozgar Yojana, all of these, when implemented in a village level, we have seen often provides a faster result in getting these things, these benefits through the ground. So when you're saying कि आपके घर के पास pothole है, you must first kind of look at who is your counselor, who is your punch, who is your sub-punch, who is helping you figure these problems out on a daily. Because often there is a complaint from politicians कि चुनाव के दौरान आते हैं, वोट मांगने आते हैं, फिर उसके बाद दिखते नहीं हैं. Let me ask you this question. How many of you have this problem as well? Everybody in the back. So this is a very common problem. We do not keep our elected representatives. Is it because हमें लगता है कि politics क्यों करना है? Yeah, do you not envision that you could be a politician? It's quite difficult. Would you mind elaborating on that, sir? Okay, agreed. Agreed. Can we give sir a round of applause because he gave me a genuinely helpful answer. I should have asked this at the very outset. Thank you, sir. So sir said that entry to politics, there's a big barrier that doesn't allow anybody who is not dynastical in terms of their politics to be able to enter into politics. But that is where it's very important to remember, sir, that, and everybody here, that the panchayat level or the councillor level is where it is easiest. Because often it is very rare that these levels of politics will be associated with political parties. So how do you do it? Because कहना आसान है, करना बड़ा मुश्किल है. So this is how I would, as someone who has not just run an election, but also has seen multiple people mount elections and fresh faces get into politics, this is how I would recommend that you, if you ever think of doing politics, the day to start is today. It will take time, but I promise you, if you follow these steps, we would hopefully see you as a sarpanch, punch, councillor, mayor, MLA, MP, prime minister, via these steps. And this is replicable at all levels of governance. First of all, start local. Go door to door, knock down as many doors, talk to people, figure out what are the problems that are ail the place that you want to represent. Second, map stakeholders. You are not going to be able to reach everybody. If you remember, I asked, how many of you have seen your elected representatives after your election? A lot of people raise their hands. You are not going to be able to reach everybody effectively all the time. So you need to get stakeholders, your teachers, your ASHA workers, your Anganwadi workers. All these people, when they are in touch with you, will create a feedback loop that goes beyond politics and helps you establish a social presence on ground. After that, offer value. In villages, you often see when there are beneficiaries, an old dadi, she will not have a pension. Because she is not able to attach her Aadhaar card to the required documentation that she needs. Simple, simple things. If you are able to identify what ails one person and fix that for him, that will go a very long way. So use formal channels. If you remember, I said, talk to your DC, talk to your tehsil level individuals, talk to your, talk to local NGOs, fill the gaps of what the people require, and get institutional support for the same. And then also, where you can, leverage WhatsApp, social media, to kind of disseminate the kind of work that you're doing so that more and more people can join you. Oftentimes, even as an MLA, there are people who have local influence, who are better able to manage local requirements, and those are the kind of people who will not only guide your processes better, but they will ensure that the feedback loop is faster. Can we go to the next one, please? Okay, we can go ahead. Okay, so how many of you knew that the Honorable Chief Minister, Fadnavis Saab, really started as a councillor at a ward level? Other than you, I think that's cheating. And so the entry, I agree that there is a barrier to entry. But when your ward level is smaller, your circle of influence that you need to outreach to people is smaller, you can build upon that. Because when you try to work on systems and you make your systems better, I feel like that is an ideal stepping stone to get you to where you want. Politics is not linear, but you can, if you look at it as a science, like they say, as a political science, than just as a, siyasat. That is when you will be able to kind of get your foot in the door and do the work that you do. We have some great examples here of what works in terms of being a younger individual participating in politics. Can you do the next one, please? And there are a lot of people who own businesses, who are part of non-profits, who kind of want to help youth participate in politics, but they don't know how to. And that is very crucial. So, of course, I'm standing here and I'm telling the youth to participate in politics, but what is the infrastructural support that we are giving them? So we must look at the fact that here, all of this in terms of, can we connect an MLA? For example, in my constituency, I have a few young girls who have also started dressing like me and started giving speeches at different events. And I think for me that's very important, because I get to, in real time, see how much of an impact my behavior can have on a youngster. So often they ask me questions and I do my best to ensure that they get the mentorship. But this can be bigger. We must attach more individuals. I believe we have individuals who are doing fellowships with the Chief Minister's office here as well, who are kind of getting that exposure early on to be able to leverage that in the future. There is also, if you are able to provide financial support, because how many of you know how much a hand pump costs to install? Am I giving you very, like, let's take a gander. How much do you think a hand pump costs to install? 45,000? So 45,000 approx. How much? I'm hearing something, some murmuring from here. 5 to 10,000, okay. Anybody else? 6,000 in Bihar? I think I need to move all of Jammu to Bihar then. So in my constituency is one of the largest constituencies in Jammu and Kashmir. We are most famous for the fact that we have the Kol Kandoli Mata Mandir, which is the first darshan of Shri Mata Vaishno Devi Ji. So if you're ever in Jammu and Jammu Kashmir wanting to go to Katra, do come and pay obeisance at that temple. I would love to host you all. And there, the terrain is both plain at one end and from one end to the other, it takes almost 3 hours via car to be able to travel the length of my constituency. In one part of the constituency, a hand pump takes 2.5 lakhs to install at the plains, and in the mountains, it takes 4 lakhs to install. So not 6,000. So there is a financial crunch. Oftentimes, जब हम कह रहे हैं कि सड़कों पे गड्ढे हैं, it is because perhaps the financial restraints might not be there. So almost 3.5 to 4 lakhs for one hand pump. So you can imagine how much that kind of accrues together, right? That is why if you have resources, give them to a young person, ask them to give you the detailed report of what they plan to do for it. I've written $2,000 here, but even at the current exchange rate, that would not even be sufficient for a hand pump. So if you can help with more, that will go definitely a long way. And then provide wherever technical support you can. Maybe you can connect them to some NGO, some CSR funding, so that they can do the tangible work that they want to do. Come on, let's do one loud clap for the person in the back. Okay. So set a goal on why you want to join politics. I've already kind of explained to you why I wanted to join politics. I've shown you a little photo. This is my father when he won his election. The house is the same, everything's the same, and then that's me below. I understand that, you know, dynastic politics is spoken about in a very specific way. But had it not been for him, I would not be standing here. I had almost more than 8 years to eat, more than 10 years now that you know my age, more than 10 years to do this. But it was not something that I was particularly fascinated with at the outset. I held his hand when he was going to step into the heavenly abode, and I made a promise to him that I would ensure that nobody feels that you're not here. I will ensure that whatever work you set out to do is done at the best of my ability, and that I will ensure that no household ever feels that you've left them midway. That is my story. So, inspired by that, we have gone ahead and done multiple projects. Most recently we've had dozens of youth get employed in the hotel industry in Jammu. We've had the first Women's Day program ever done in Jammu and Kashmir with more than 8,000 women participate. We are helping multiple self-help groups, old age camps. We've launched 2 products by self-help groups. One of them is organic dhoop cones called Puja Sati, also available on Amazon. #shameless plug. And also other products that these women are making. So we are leveraging what we have in terms of a platform to get work done and to put money in people's pockets. Because 5,000 rupees, while it may not buy a hand pump, it changes the livelihood of the person living in that village, in that house. That is the sphere of influence that you can have when youth participates in local politics. Let's get one last clap in there. So how many of you have heard onwards and upwards? Just the 2 of you. So the Marwadi brothers, please let's give them a huge round of applause because they've been very gracious with the... ये ठंडा काम मेरे साथ बिल्कुल भी नहीं चलता है. I know there is a lot of energy in you guys. Let's give a huge round of applause to the Marwadi brothers for giving us such a wonderful platform to be able to talk to you all today. So great. There is a saying that says onwards and upwards, but I call it upwards and onwards. I say look up first. Dream the biggest that you can dream, and then take one step at a time towards it. You don't have to change all of India today. But you can change that one pothole, you can change that one hand pump, and you can change the life of one individual and slowly have that sphere of influence wherever you go. And I would hope that by the time your panchayat election rolls around, that you all file your nomination papers. And if this presentation did not really convince you, don't worry, I'll come back and help you file that nomination papers if that's what gets you to the ballot paper. Thank you. You've been a wonderful audience, and I appreciate you sparing your time. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know it has been a very engaging and intensive day, but let us carry forward that enthusiasm and energy. And before we move forward, may I please request everyone to join me in giving one huge round of applause for Ms. Devyani. Let's pump up that energy once again. And we now request Ms. Devyani Rana and Ms. Itidri Goyal to kindly proceed with the fireside chat.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Devyani Goyal, and I'm really excited to be here with all of you and Devyani, who I believe represents a new generation of political leadership in India. And today, young leaders who are navigating legacy, transition, and reform in some of the most complex regions of the country. So I have some questions prepared, and then we'll open it up for the Q&A. So Devyani, should we start? So your entry into politics followed a deeply personal and public transition. How do you balance continuity with innovation, respecting your political legacy while establishing yourself as an independent leader?
I believe the biggest strength for innovation comes from tradition. And I think when you have the ability to go back on wisdom that has propelled a region like Nagrota. So allow me to give you a little bit of a geographical context. If you are in Jammu and you are planning to go to anywhere in Kashmir, you have to pass through my constituency. We touch around 9 assembly constituencies. We are what is known as a feeder constituencies to all these constituencies. So in fact, I had one of the students here, I can't see her, she had come to Katra during our election and saw all my hoardings. It was a little embarrassing, but that's the geographical context that we have. And in terms of the development, I have had a superior development model that I've gotten in terms of the work that was done prior by my revered father. And we are taking it forward because the basic works of the roads, the basic works of water connections was predominantly already done. So what we now do is go back and ensure there's maintenance, but then also go ahead and bring in more innovations and more ideas. So we can focus more on, there's the Maslow's theory of need. So once the basics are done, you can concentrate more on innovation. And I've been very privileged in that way that a lot of the basic work has already been taken care of.
Beautiful, nice. Nice, guys. I think she deserves a round of applause. Okay. India, so my next question, if you're ready. So India is one of the youngest democracies demographically, yet not legislatively. What are some of the structural barriers preventing more young people from entering politics at the youth level? And would you support intra-party quotas for younger candidates?
I think the biggest problem that people face when they're entering politics is that they're only looking at the legislator as the first step of politics, entry into politics. So you have to, when you are just looking at that denominator, it looks intimidating. There is a need to provide platforms to both youth and women within the context of traditional politics. And that is where these platforms, whether it's the Yuva Morcha or other allied youth wings or the Mahila Morcha and other allied women's wings, they play their important parts in that context and also provide that first initial entry into politics. But of course, more and more support can be provided in both these realms.
Yes. Thank you for that answer, Devyani. So moving on. How do young voters in Jammu and Kashmir differ from their parents' political generation? Are their priorities shifting towards economic development, identity, national integration, or global opportunity?
I'll actually tell you a little bit of a story. When I was very young, right in the middle of the night, I could hear firecrackers, very loudly. And we got a little, excited because we were very young. Must have been 4 or 5. And this was shortly after the Kargil war. So a little older, 7 or 8 perhaps. And at the time, you know, everybody was like, oh, don't worry, they're just fireworks. But it was actually a terror attack at our railway station, which is 2 minutes from where I live. So now, what we experienced in our childhood is not something that the youth have experienced. There, more or less in Jammu and Kashmir, there has been a sea of change in terms of how terror was literally on the streets. And it was literally something that you had to face almost every day or every other day. There has been a systemic kind of uprooting of those networks. And of course, there is a saying in the security forces that they have to get it right once, whereas the security forces have to get it right all the time. And so you might hear of 1 or 2 sporadic incidents now, but earlier that was our life almost every other day. So the youth, their perspective of voting has changed because that security net has widened, and there is a more secure understanding of politics now than there was 20 years ago.
That's really brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for the answers, guys. Huge round of applause. And building on that, what is the real potential of youth leadership in Jammu and Kashmir? Basically, how do we get more Devyanis into the J&K assembly?
No, that's very sweet of you, but I'll give you a little bit of context. I went into a by-election and was elected in November, but even prior to me in 2024, we have our Honorable MLA Kishtwar, Sushri Shagun Pariharji, who's a few months older than me. Then in my by-election, when it was happening in our constituency, it was also happening in Budgam. I don't know if you've heard. The Honorable MLA Budgam, Aga Said Murtaza, is also, I think, only a year older than me. So we're kind of now percolating and kind of getting into politics. So I think J&K has coincidentally started moving younger in this assembly, and we're grateful for it because I especially see that there is a shift in how energized and how youthful politicians are and how the public perceives them.
Okay, guys, huge round of applause for Devyani. And we'd now like to open the floor to students.
Sure.
Some of the questions, please keep your questions precise and limited. Anybody?
I don't think anybody has.
No, but
I've already asked like a bunch of questions.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Devyani, for
Thank you so
not
much,
just
Nidhi.
offering us your story, but insight into the most youth leadership within the democracy of India. I think people are pretty tired now.
I know.
Yeah.
I've talked you. I've out-talked everybody.
Yes.
I think.
Okay. Huge round of applause, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Devyani, and just